Please turn on your video if you want it. So good afternoon, everybody. This is the panel 5, the first symposium on Muslim politics and world religion. And our panel is entitled Religion and Politics. So we are going to discuss 4 papers in this afternoon. The first paper is Hikmawan Saifullah, and the second Hadza min Fadhli Robby, Muhammad Maulidan, and Zuliyan Muhammad Rizky. And the third paper is Ryllian Chandra Eka Viana, and the fourth is Ari Santoso and Humairo Sicilia. So this is just a house rule that each presenter I will give 15 minutes and maximum 20 minutes, and then we will have like 30 minutes to have discussion from the floor. So without further ado, I would like to invite Hikmawan Saifullah from the University of Padjadjaran, Indonesia, to deliver his paper on understanding the ideological shift of formerly progressive and leftist underground youth to Islamic conservatism and right-wing Islamism in post-authoritarian Indonesia. Screen is yours, Pak Hikmawan Saifullah, and 15 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, for introducing me and other speakers, and hello everyone. Okay, give me a few seconds to turn on the camera and also sharing my screen. Okay, yeah, this one. Okay. All right. I hope it's clear enough. I just want to make sure if the screen that I shared is actually the regular or presenter. Is it?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. All right. So it's a regular screen. I hope because I'm using 2 screens and sometimes it just swapped accidentally. So yeah, so Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Shalom semuanya, everyone. This is good afternoon from Canberra. So I am in Canberra at the moment, and I've been here for the last few months. And today I'm going to explain or present you a paper. Not really. Yeah, it's paper on progress. And it is based on my PhD thesis titled Transformations of Resistance, Underground Music Scene and Islamic Politics in Post-Authoritarian Indonesia. Yeah. So I'm trying to summarize some of the materials I have written in my thesis, and that is particularly on the theory and also the methodology, which I found very useful to understand why some of the underground music scene participants, such as punks and metalheads and rappers, that used to be known as secular, progressive, even radical left, and also all of a sudden they turn to or shift ideologically to conservative Islam and right-wing Islamism. Yeah. So to start with, yeah. Okay. Where is it? Okay. To start with, let me introduce or explain to you a little bit about the background of this study, yeah, and why should I care about this study. Yeah. So it started from my personal ideological, cultural, and political experiences in the past. And it is related to my Islamic educations and also my movement participations in 1990s. I studied in a pesantren called Darul Arkom, and then also in SMU Plus Mutahari. Darul Arkom is Muhammadiyah based in Garut, and Mutahari is in Bandung. And then in the 1990s, I was also an activist in an underground Islamic movement, known as Pelajar Islam Indonesia. It was banned by Suharto at the time because we rejected Pancasila as the sole ideology for any organizations in Indonesia. So we believe that, well, PI actually have different factions. Some accepted Pancasila, some didn't. And that was me in the past. In the 1990s, I was so young, and yeah, I was so young and still learning, basically. Yeah. So I was active in PI with other activists, and I was active in recruiting young people to join PI. And basically, we were struggling against the new order at the time. Yeah. And then I was also active at the Forum Ukhuwah Remaja Islam. And then at the same time, I began my involvement in the Bandung underground music scene, both as musician and a fan. Yeah. So I started a very amateurish band. It's called Habanagan, Young Coconut, Lone at Last, yeah, which is my last band until I resigned to do my PhD in Australia. And then during my activism in the 1990s, and also during my pretty much my leisure time in the underground scene, I witnessed something that was that I had never seen before. Is that when I was in Bandung, I saw that underground music scene is not necessarily a place or a space for young people to celebrate their taste in loud rock music, yeah, but also it is a space for activism, where leftist social movements began to be very prominent in the underground scene. And then many of the underground scene participants, so-called as underground youth, especially punks and metalheads, mostly punks, they joined leftist movements, yeah, especially the one is called People's Democratic Party, or PRD. And some of them actually become more active and recruiting underground youth to be part of the leftist collectives, such as the Anti-Fascist Front, Barisan Anti Penindasan, and then RI Boots, and there are so many other underground collectives that pretty much become an umbrella organization for underground youth who dissatisfied with the political establishment of the new order. Yeah, and these leftist movements were largely influenced by socialist and anarchist ideology. Yeah, and then they were involved in the mobilizations against Suharto and the end of New Order, and they allied themselves with the student movements and labor movements at the time. And some of them joined the demonstrations at Gedung Sate in Bandung, also at the DPR MPR area in Jakarta. And then in the end, we are all witnessing, and I was part of the PI mobilizations at that time. We also joined demonstrations. Whether you're on the left or on the right political streams, we are all witnessing the collapse of the new order, the end of Suharto's presidency after ruling Indonesia for more than 30 years. And we thought that that was actually our victory in the struggle against the new order's authoritarianism. We were so happy, I couldn't describe how happy we were at the time, because we thought by the end of the new order, that means there will be a brighter, better future for Indonesia. Yeah. And we were hoping that Indonesia will become more democratic socially and politically. Yeah. But then what happened after that is actually beyond our expectation, because after the fall of Suharto, and then also after the 9/11, yeah, and apparently this leftist activism or movements that was very vibrant, very influential, and very popular in the underground scene in the 1990s, they all of a sudden pretty much declining, gradually declining. And then at the same time, there was this emergence of a new underground movement that uses Islam and Islamist political ideology as the basis as the basis of their resistance. Yeah. So the leftist underground youth were declining at the time, and the right-wing Islamist underground youth become emerging and become more popular. Yeah. There was no clear explanation at the time what explains these changes. Yeah. And then what we can see at the time, what I can see at the time, is that from the existence of collectives and movements that characterizes this new subcultural movement. Amongst them was the One Finger Underground movement or Komunitas Salam Satu Jari, and there's also Pang Muslim, which can be found in Jakarta, in Surabaya, Bogor, Bekasi, Bandung, and also there was Underground Tauhid, which was that was more active in the virtual scene because they used the propaganda through their websites and also the fanzines. There was few meetings between the members, but is not as active as, like, let's say, the leftist underground collectives in the 1990s. So this is the era where internet has become more popular and accessible, and the underground Tauhid members use the internet, social media, and websites in order to spread their propaganda. This underground Tauhid used to be known as Guraba Militan Tauhid, yeah, and apparently the founders of this collective used to be sympathizing and part of the leftist underground movements in the 1990s. So they were disillusioned and then turned to Islamism, yeah, as their new way of dealing with the social and political challenges in post-authoritarian Indonesia. And apart from Guraba Militan Tauhid, there was also Pangkajian, Pang Hijrah, yeah, and also what was not identified by scholars of Indonesian Islam and Islamic politics is that there were also Islamic underground movement that has linked to Hizbut Tahrir Indonesia. Yeah, so the recruiting underground used to join their Islamist political cause, and that is to reenacting the caliphate. Yeah, this is including Liberation Youth, Hambos Community, and then an umbrella organizations of other HTI-linked collectives, which is called RISE, and they're involved in the International Caliphate Conference. I think it was in 2007. Yeah, and then there was also Hijrah movement, which has been very popular and spotlighted by the media, yes, especially since the last 7 to 8 years. Yeah. This hijrah movements, including Shift, Gerakan Pemuda Hijrah in Bandung, and also in Jakarta, there's also the Strangers Al Ghuraba. So most of these hijrah movements, they shared the conservative teachings of Islam, some of them against music, some of them still okay with music, but what can be summarized from their ideological orientation is that most of them, they don't believe in democracy anymore. They believe in Islam as the sole ideology for society and state in general, yeah. And they're against religious minorities such as Shia and Ahmadiyya. Yeah. So when there was these intolerant cases against these minorities, the members of these hijrah movements are practically in line with the views of conservative organizations. Yeah. And then some of them, yeah, some of these Islamic underground movement participants, they taking part in various Islamist mobilizations, such as the HTI-linked collectives. They joined the International Caliphate Conference in Jakarta in 2007. Then there's also, they joined an anti-jil protest held in Bundaran HI Jakarta, which was organized by Forum Umat Islam or FUI, but also followed by other right-wing Islamic organizations. And then recently, they also joined Aksi Bela Islam, which was organized by GNPF MUI, yeah, the conservative factions of MUI. Yeah. So, and this is the picture that made me wondering and asking lots of questions. So this picture is taken in 2012 during the Islamic Clothing United and Indonesia Tanpa Jil gathering in Jakarta. And if I'm not mistaken, this is during the event of Jaklot Festival. It's one of, I think this is Indonesia's largest clothing festival, where you can come to the festival enjoying underground rock music performances, and also you can shop around with the local fashion and distro products in there. And Yeah, this is in 2012, before Indonesian government made a policy of banning or considering ISIS
Oh,
as.
Pak Hikmawan, your time
Yeah.
another 2 minutes, so you may.
Okay, right. Before the Indonesian government banned ISIS, there were some elements within the underground movement that actually supporting Al Qaeda and ISIS and all that. So this is what made me question about all of this. So in my research in the thesis is that I was trying to find an answer. Why did sub-underground music scene participants shift to conservative Islam and right-wing Islamism in post-authoritarian Indonesia? Yeah. And I tried to find the answers by reading some of the literatures until I found that the most popular literature is actually from the literatures on the conservative turn, yeah, which given me insightful explanations about the key institutions and political processes which contributed to the conservative turn. But none of these literatures actually pay attention to the young people, especially the ones associated with the underground youth, yeah. And therefore, I find I found an alternative theory that I can use as an analytical framework, and that is subcultural theory. And basically, subcultural theory assumes that young people's participations in subcultures, such as the underground subcultures, reflects an individual and collective attempt to resolve their social and economic problems that disempowered and marginalize them. Yeah. And then in the thesis, I proposed an argument, and this is based on the subcultural theory and also my employment of ethnographic research method, is that I found that the transformations of underground music scene, including the most recent shift of its participant to conservative Islam and right-wing Islamism, is actually reflecting the transformations of youth resistance in response to different social, political, and economic conditions that disempower and marginalize them. Yeah. And the participants sought for alternative channels to express their dissent, including new ideological and financial platforms to resist hegemonic cultures and authorities, and finding solutions to the demoralizing effects generated by the above conditions. And this is the most important thing, because when it comes to the post-reformacy era, the left movements was again suppressed by the government, which creates incoherence and demobilizations among leftist left activists. And then because of that, because of the absence of current leftist activism within the underground scene, and then many of the underground youth that used to sympathize and taking part in the leftist movement, they were looking for ideological and organizational alternatives. Yeah, and that is Islamic conservatism and right-wing Islamism. Yeah, and they use this as the basis for their new resistance in the post-reformacy era. Yeah.
Can you go to your thesis conclusion? 1 minute
Okay,
more.
all right. So basically, my argument is actually based on my analysis on the social structures in the two political periods during the New Order and also after the New Order. So I try to examine the social structures in the two political periods, and also the class relations, the beliefs, values, and philosophies held by the leftists and also by the right-wing underground movements, and then also the importance of how they perform resistance to the disempowering and marginalizing social structure. Yeah, and then I took the samples from 3 big cities in Indonesia, yeah, Bandung, Jakarta, and Surabaya, and that includes male and female in late 20s and early 40s. And I use both primary and secondary data, where I find answers or data or information from participant observation, and by doing nongkrong or hanging out. Yeah. Okay. Just 1 more minute. Just 1 more minute, sir. So nongkrong or hanging out, doing interviews and conversations, and also semi-formal and informal group discussions, and also reading the literature that was read by the participants. Yeah, and then I did the same thing also in all places where I found that actually the subculture theory pretty much really valid in contributing to my key argument. So in a way, I find my conclusion in my thesis is that, you know, the underground use ideological shift to Islamic conservatism is actually because of what do you call it? the absence of coherent leftist movement, yeah, and because no more strong leftist movement in the underground scene, and at the same time, the right wing and Islamic conservatism is taking over the space, and pretty much the new generations of underground youth are shifting ideologically to this new ideological basis. And that explains why some of the underground scene participants in Bandung, Jakarta, and Surabaya, they decided to detach themselves from leftist orientations of the underground movement, and they become part of the collective so-called as Islamic underground movement. All right, hopefully you're not happy with the presentation, so we can have a discussion further after other presenters. Thank you.
Thank you, Hikmawan, for your presentation. I think we may discuss your finding in the Q&A, and please later on, if you want to ask question, give reaction, raise hand in your Zoom so we can identify that you want to ask a question. So I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Jamhari Makruf. I am one of the lecturer at the Indonesian International Islamic University. Now I would like to call the second presenters of the paper, Hadza min Fadhli Robby and Muhammad Maulidan and Zuliyan Muhammad Rizky from Universitas Islam Indonesia, Yogyakarta. And the paper entitled The Contemporary Narratives of Islamic Left in Indonesia and Turkey, a Comparative Analysis. So, Universitas Islam Indonesia. Please, Hadza min Fadhli Robby, Muhammad Maulidan, and Muhammad Rizky. The screen is yours.
Okay,
your time is 15 minutes sharp. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Professor Jamhari, for your kind remarks and for your allowance for us to present in this conference. First of all, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I would like to first give my appreciation to the convener of the event, and I just would like to start immediately the discussion for our paper. So our paper is analyzing the case of two Islamic leftist movement in Indonesia and Turkey, and I will be the one who is presenting the paper for today. Muhammad Maulidan and Zuliyan Muhammad Rizky as my research partner is also here, and they are mainly helping me with analyzing the data and also helping me compiling the references. I'm the one being the principal author and also the prime correspondent for this paper. So it is an honor again to be participating in this conference together with esteemed scholars. I'd like to begin the presentation by delivering some key points. So what we would like to do in this paper is that we are trying to explain what are the main arguments of the Islamic leftist movements that are being reconstructed again in Indonesia and Turkey. Of course, we know that since the Islamic Revolution in Iran in 1979, we've known that there are waves of rereading of Islam and leftist ideology, and several thinkers has already tried to formulate the idea like Al-Yasar al-Islami as founded by Hassan Hanafi back then in 1980s. And this idea was spreading not only in the Arabic world and the traditional Islamic world in the Middle East, but also beyond the boundaries of Middle East through the help of certain students in Indonesia and also Turkey who are trying to disseminate this progressive version of Islamism by translating the works of Hassan Hanafi. And so the Islamic leftist idea become very much well known in Indonesia and Turkey. But then after the process of democratizations, we are looking at the rise of neoliberal regimes in both countries. This system indeed drives some kind of economic growth and improving a lot of indicators in macroeconomic performances in both countries. But the problem is that the neoliberal economic system that are happening that are being applied in Muslim majority countries also affects both urban and rural Muslim communities. And this brought once again Islamic leftist movement on the rise in Indonesia and Turkey. And so we decided that we should take two case studies. The first one is FNKSDA or FNKSDA, the Santri Nahdien, Front Nahdien untuk Kedaulatan Sumber Daya Alam in Indonesian language, and also the case in Turkey, the anti-capitalist Musliman, the anti-capitalist Muslims. Of course, there are a lot of analysis that has been conducted in this respect, analyzing both the cases of Indonesia and Turkey, but there are still no comparison to these two movements. And I think that we are thinking that it is important to compare these two movements, because Indonesia and Turkey has actually experienced some kinds of similar trajectories, especially after 1980s, when two countries are facing both neoliberalization and also democratization at the same time, which ended up in, well, relative economic growth, but also rising inequalities. And so we all know the stories on how neoliberalism in Indonesia has taken place, especially during the end of 1990. We are looking at the full implementation of neoliberal policy. But this is somehow dilemmatic. Why? Because Indonesia doesn't want to see itself as a neoliberal regime due to its commitment to fulfill the constitutional mandate as being envisioned in the preamble of 1945 Constitution. So Indonesia is kind of facing the dilemma of becoming either a neoliberal state or socialist state. So Indonesia is trapped in between. Yeah, but there are several scholars, from many institutions who have argued that Indonesia is already entering a phase where Indonesia has become an authoritarian neoliberal regime. Yeah? A bit with a very populist face, and somehow still applying some socialist principles, because it goes it will prove the Pancasila credential of the regime. Yeah. So I'm trying to go fast here because I actually want to discuss, want to get some inputs, and also want to get some important criticism from the audiences. So what we are also discussing in this case of authoritarian neoliberalism is also the case of Turkey, in which we have argued that AK Party, since its inception as an Islamist party, has been a strong supporter of neoliberalist project in Turkey. So when AK Party has entered as the winner in the 2003 parliamentary election, which was known as the turning point for Turkish modern politics, Turkish contemporary politics, they're not only bringing their Islamist credential, they're also bringing their neoliberalist credential at the same time. Why? Because they want to be known as someone who, as a party which welcomes the Western identity. They wish to become a bridge to between the West and the East, and they are aspiring to become EU candidate in the future, but to no avail, unfortunately. So after some period of time, particularly after the 2013 Gezi Park movement, and also after the 15 July 2016, when the coup attempt was happening in Turkey, at the time I was already in Indonesia and I'm still studying in Turkey, but fortunately I was still in Indonesia for a holiday, so I was not trapped in that bad condition. So, but what I've witnessed during those times when I was studying in Turkey for my master's, I can see that the government is trying to take over all of the assets previously owned by a Muslim capitalist that were previously affiliating themselves to the Gulen movement, because the Gulen movement was also in support of the neoliberalism project conducted by IKP government. But after that, there are some effort to distance them from the AK party, and after that they will declare terrorists. So all of their assets are being taken over by the government. So we can say that it is the moment where the Turkish state capitalism truly wins. Yeah, but they are currently facing a very important crisis, and that's for another research to answer. And this authoritarian neoliberalism, both in Indonesia and Turkey, has becoming the reason why Islamic leftist movement gain traction in both countries. So we've explained a lot of this in the paper. So if you want to know more about our elaboration, you can just read the paper later on, either in journal or proceeding. I don't know where we will get the place for the journal for our article. So, but the awakening of the idea of Islamic leftism was initiated by intellectuals, the Muslim intellectuals in both Indonesia and Turkey. While in Indonesia, the effort to translate the works by Hasan Hanafi was started by students in UIN Sunan Kalijaga, and also in LKIS as the publishing house for the Islamic leftists at that time, were mostly consisted of Nahdliyin. In Turkey, the case is not really that different. Yeah, well, the intellectuals in the Faculty of Divinity in Ankara University was responsible of disseminating the works of Islamic leftists in Egypt. The works by Hasan Hanafi, by Arkun, by a lot of progressive Muslim intellectuals was being translated into Turkish, and thus a lot of Muslim intellectuals become familiar with those ideas. And this dissemination of idea doesn't stop only as a work, intellectual works, but they also become an intellectual work. And this is something that differs the Turkish case from Indonesian case. So these Muslim intellectuals finally created a party that is called as the Has Party, which bases their ideology on the tenets of Islamism and social democratism. So this is an experiment that was done by several professors at the time, but they were soon failed because some of the leaders decided to leave the party to join AK Party. Yeah, because there was some kind of negotiation happening between Erdogan and Numan Kurtulmuş, who was previously the leader of the Has Party. And so let me just tell you the story of MFFN KSDA. I think that several of our colleagues here have been familiar with the story of FN KSDA, and it is currently led by an undergraduate student. The coordinator of this movement now is a final year undergraduate student at the Department of International Relations in UPN Veteran Jawa Timur. So I was surprised of that fact. And this shows that this movement is rapidly growing and slowly gaining masses. Why they are so appealing? Because they promoted the idea of eco-theology, and they're also following the theological orientation of Aswaja Nahdliyin. And so whenever a Nahdliyin santri decided to go to university and exposed to the readings of Marxism, Engels, and they still want to keep their credential as santri, they decided to join this movement because they feel like they can fulfill their aspiration as a progressive scholar, as well as a pious, devout Muslim. Yeah. So I think our argument here in the paper would contrast to what Pak Hikmawan would want to say in his paper. I mean, this is a very interesting topic that we should discuss together in respect to the transformation amongst the Muslim youth in urban community. FNS and FNKSDA also followed principle of socialism by building coalition with villagers and farmers. We've known that they're very active in advocating the rights of farmers in Temon, in Kendeng, in many other places as well, and recently in Wadas. Yeah, and uniquely they're also using several strategies. They're not only using the strategy of pesantren agraria and also ngaji eco theology, but they're also creating some kinds of salawat. It was being written by Gus Fayat, who is also an instructor or kiai in one of the pesantren in Probolinggo. Anti-capitalist Musliman. So this is a very interesting story about anti-capitalist Musliman. I'm trying to keep a contact with Ihsan Eliacuk Hoja, who is the most prominent face of this movement, but I haven't got a time to interview him. So I think if we got the time to revise this paper, I would like to keep a contact with Ustadz Ihsan Eliacuk, as well as with Mehmet Hairi Kerbasholu, who is also part of this Islamic leftist movement. So the anti-capitalist Musliman was mainly inspired by Ali Shariati, but they are also inspired by figures like Abu Zar al-Ghifari and also Sheikh Badruddin. So they are trying to focus their movement in cities, in urban areas, by mobilizing on and organizing activists in their resistance against the authoritarian neoliberal, and especially they are directing their criticism toward the official religious institution who are supporting the neoliberal regime. Yeah, that is the Diyanet. Yeah. So they are trying to advocate for the right of oppressed labor, women, and families, and collaborated with other Islamic leftist organizations. But not only that, they're also building coalition with another social democratic coalition as well. But they are not really welcome within the leftist, the larger leftist movement. Why? Because leftist movement has this inherent logic of rejecting religion. So they have this very strong secular credential that they have built since early 20th centuries, because they are having a close interaction with Bolshevik regime at the time. And soon after, they are drifting away from the religious background. And until now, they are still keeping a very distant attitude toward any movement they are using religious as its motivation, including the Islamic leftism. So that
your time is 2 minutes more.
Okay, 2 minutes. Okay, let me just conclude this, Pak Jamhari. Thank you for your reminder. So MSFF, NKSDA, and AKM was focusing their critics towards the authoritarian neoliberalism by employing the tool of fiqh, while FNKSDA was using environmental fiqh as a way to answer the issue of authoritarian neoliberalism. AKM is trying to be more confrontational in attacking the traditionalist interpretation that were being promoted by Diyanet as the religious protege of the Turkish neoliberal regime. NYKSDA has successfully also networked with various socialist communist platforms. I mean, they are more plural in their approach. And IKM, where they are trying to be more plural in their approach, they cannot get any coalition because what I've said before, yeah. Another leftist parties such as Turkish Communist Party regard them as as gerigi or as backwards, because they are always following the religious standards. They are trying to look pious and leftist at the same time, which looks very much impossible for the leftists to do in Turkey. Yeah, and for the last part, I'd like to conclude this by saying that the analysis between these two movements is very interesting, because it really shows the nature of the relation between religion and politics in Turkey, and how it is being reinterpreted by the Islamic leftist activists in two countries. And that's all for us. Thank you very much for listening, and we are waiting for further inputs and also comments from the esteemed audiences. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Pak Hadza. Very interesting discussion. If you compare with Pak Hikmawan earlier presentation, so I think there will be a discussion for us. So where now leftist movement doing in the cities or underground? So I think that's probably we can discuss later on in the discussion. So I would like to invite the third panelist for our session now is Ryllian Chandra Eka Viana from State Islamic University Raden Fatah, Palembang, Indonesia. The paper is Limited Islamic Populism in Palembang in the 1950s. So Ryllian Chandra Eka Viana, the time and screen is yours.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Jamhari. Today I will present a paper entitled Limited Islamic Populism in Palembang in the 1950s. Okay, I share. Okay, the part point of this research, of this paper, is I criticize the national history narration regarding PRRI or government revolutionary government of Republic Indonesia, because in that narration government plays military officer as the main actor of the rebellion, and they simplifies or synthesize or even don't play other actor that then simplifies the complexity of local power formation. And in this paper, I see that there are another big power, especially in Palembang, that contribute to the political turbulence in the 1950s. And I see the Islamic group in South Sumatra gave the big contribution to the political movement. Even in the end, they keep far away from the vortex of rebellion in Central Sumatra, especially in Padang. And this paper also I saw that there are a connectivity between social economic change and the emergence of political identity. The slightly different between the modern populism and the classic populism, I can say it, that in Palembang, in modern one, we saw that there are a group that marginalized because of the neoliberal policy. The difference is what happened in Palembang. It because of South Sumatran had long connectivity, had long economic connectivity with global market. Since colonial era, Dutch government ran free market policy, especially in the outside Java and island outside Java. And first, I want to explain about the economic background of the political turbulence in 1950s. Because in the 1950s, Palembang was the biggest, was the center of rubber cultivation, and South Sumatra gave the majority revenues for national, for Jakarta. That's the main background. But in toward middle in 1950s, the economic decline happened because of the central government tried to intervene region economy. And in this case, I saw that Islamic group based mess in South Sumatra, include the smallholder, middleman, and sometimes ordinary, maybe almost people in South Sumatra at that time relying on rubber trade. Okay, this is the economic background. Then when economic decline happened, in the same time, political ingredient add more fuel to local politics. First, of course, the centralistic policy. South Sumatra didn't like the didn't like or didn't favor centralistic policy run by Jakarta, because they get benefit from free market. Then in the same time, Islam political group, they have an opportunity because the election result in 1955 gave them championed the election. Okay, the internal fuel first is economic, then in the same time Islam group in Palembang get the opportunity to get highlight, because since the revolution they always in peripheral, they marginalized by nationalist group in urban area. Okay, but also I saw that Masyumi in central government dismissed by central government because they can agree on several policy, and particularly about how to tolerate communism. Nah, I framed this paper as a populism, because first I saw that Islamic group try to crafting alliance with other group in local province, or they are a local power. There are maybe four big faction in South Sumatra: Islamic group, traditional aristocrat group, and urban nationalist group, and military. Every group have the same grievance, the economic grievance, but every group also channel the grievance through the various method. The method which did by Islamic group is they run rally, then they hold the first biggest ulama conference, Muktamar Alim Ulama, in 1957. It was the momentum of Islamic group, especially outside Java, to show their power, to sound their grievance, and to sound how central government could act or could accommodate the political representation. And this happened in Palembang, but in the end of like this, there are the pivot movement happened in Palembang when central Sumatra, Padang, and Medan experienced the violent escalation.
Ryllian, you have another 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Menadin, sometimes the center of rebellion was in Padang and Medan. But what happened in Palembang is different, because the core of their grievance was economic grievance. The ideological ingredient, religious ingredient, cannot add or encourage the Islamic mobilization become the militant, become the military support. Maybe the conclusion is that the rebellion what happened in 1950s is that not happened because of the military friction or military intrigue or maybe elite intrigue, but because of they are content of the complexity local politics. Maybe that is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ryllian, for your presentation. So I think we can save some time to have a discussion later on. So, and I would like to invite the fourth presenter in this afternoon, Ari Santoso and Humairo Cecilia Muswar from State Islamic University Syarif Hidayatullah, Jakarta. They will present the importance of social and political factors of voting behavior comparison of young voters in rural urban area to Muslim political parties. So Arya Santoso and Humaira Cecilia Muswar, the screen and time is yours.
Thank you very much, Professor Jamhari. At this time, Ari Santoso will present our papers.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Jamhari, and all participants. My name is Ari Santoso from Winsari Hidayatullah Jakarta, and my partner Humaira from Indexstat Research and Data Science. Our paper, the title of our paper is The Importance of Socio-Political Factors of Voting Behavior Comparison of Young Voters in Rural Urban Areas to Muslim Political Parties. Okay, for the background, we know that since 1999 until 2090 in Indonesia, we have do Democratic Party and provided political lesson for Indonesia people, not only for the voters but also for the political party and also the candidate. Yeah, and we know that in Indonesia, as the biggest Muslim society, yet the emerging phenomenon is Muslim political parties have not win the election for all region in Indonesia, not only for the national level, but also for the region level. Yeah, we can see in what is it, 34 province, yeah, and the lower level in the province. Yeah. And most of political party develop the same political strategy and political communication for all categories of voters and all areas. So we think that this weakness also become a recurring pattern that traps Muslim parties in Indonesia. Yeah, we know that from now, yeah, and the next future, political party will concern to the young voters. Why? Because our bonus demography in Indonesia, yeah, about 40% young voters in Indonesia. So I think all party will concern how to get get the voters, yeah, from the young. So we try to capture, yeah, not only from the demography aspect, but also from the area. Yeah, in Indonesia we have a large area. We have province level and also this region level until the village. Yeah, but we try to simplify the area with the urban and rural categories. Yeah, we know Statistic Indonesia always divide to categories, urban and rural. So we have we expect from this dimension, yeah, from the dimension of the area, urban and rural, and also from the age, yeah, the young, we can find a new model, yeah, the behavior of the voters in this dapil, yeah, area of election. So our research aims to interpret the paradox by comparing the voting behavior of young voters in urban and rural areas to aspire to a new political strategy for Islamic parties in Indonesia. And our methodology, we use quantitative and qualitative for the interpretation and analysis the research. For the quantitative methods, we use multi-stage random sampling. Our sample size is 343 respondents. Yeah, we use an optimum formula with the margin of error 5.2%, and the instrument survey developed by political behavior theory that three model behavior, as we know, sociological, psychological, and rational choices. Yeah, and the location of this research. Area election, or we call daerah pemilihan, Dapil 2 West Java, because This location represent the rural and urban area. Cianjur district as a rural and Bogor city for the urban. The rural area has variative cluster. Yeah, in Cianjur district has variative cluster according to clustering village from Ministry of Village Development of this disadvantaged regions and transmigration. For the result, the proportion of the respondent is for the Bogor city 27.2% and Cianjur Regency 72.8%. And the proportion of the youth population for the population, in Bogor city and Cianjur Regency is 35% and 65% respectively. The score show that we can trust for this sampling that the proportionality of the sample is quite good at describing the population. And the next, for the profile of respondent, for the region, young voters in both urban and rural areas are equally dominated by Islamic religion. Yeah, so there is no significantly difference between urban and rural area. For the education, we can see that a sufficient characteristic of respondent indicated a difference in educational profile. Yeah, specifically, we can see the young voters in urban areas with the high school and college education. The total is 56.5%, while in rural areas it was only 29.9%. So it looks different between urban and rural area for the education aspect. And then for the employment, we can see that in rural areas work much more as farmers, breeders, or fishermen than youth in urban areas. Yeah, namely in business that are strongly influenced by nature, according to Baumann in 1996. Yeah. For these results, descriptively, it can be seen that the characteristic of young voters in urban areas tend to have higher economic capacity than in rural areas. In terms of the distribution of sex and religion, tends to have similar characteristic among youth voters. And next, for the voter behavior, for the sociological behavior. From our research, the results showed that youth voters in rural areas conducted higher sociological consideration than youth voters in urban areas. We can see in the table that for the youth voters in rural, they consider more than one indicators aspect for the sociological consideration. They see from the gender, young age, originality from the same area, tribal and religion. But in urban, they consider more about the living in the same area, only one aspect. But for the young voters in rural, they consider more than one aspect in sociological consideration. Aggregately, we can see that 42.01% in rural, they consider in sociological consideration, sociological aspect, and this is higher than urban voters. And we can see for the psychological consideration, we can also see also for the rural voters, young voters in rural, they consider more than one aspect, the influence of the issue on the media, and it's 36.1% higher than urban, only 18.2%. But in urban, only consider one aspect, that is honest, clean, and corruption free. From this descriptive, we can imagine that if the party see this result, they can set the strategy how to strategy in rural and urban. It's different enough. Yeah. So for the psychological indicators widely used by youth in rural areas, about 40.68% who consider all psychological indicators in making their choice compared to only 36.8% of urban youth. And the next, the last behavior is rational consideration. Yeah, we can see for the rational, it's different than before. Yeah, for the urban voters, youth urban voters, they higher consider in this aspect, aspect, yeah, in rational choice, yeah, have a profitable campaign program, rural only 60, in urban until 86, yeah, and also experience in the legislature, in rural only 54, and the urban until 65, yeah. So overall, yeah, we can see that indicator of rational choice is more widely used by youth in urban, namely as many as 86% who consider all rational indicators in making their choice compared to only 57.5% in youth in urban areas. Okay. So from the result, it discovered that the factor significantly influence voting behavior in urban and rural voters are different. Economic and ethnic factors, regional, heavily affected the voting behavior of youth voters in rural communities. This discovery encouraged the widespread practice of money politics in rural communities. Yeah, because of the economic factors. Yeah, so encourage the widespread practice in money politics, as well as you know how practice money politics in rural area. Meanwhile, in urban youth voters, educational factors serve as a significant aspect of their voting behavior, and educational factors significantly affect their political choice. It is not surprising that the result of this research also show that for novice voters in urban and rural areas, the similarity of religion with Muslim political parties doesn't improve. So for the religion is not different, yeah, between rural and urban. So the discussion from the above analysis, we have a question: why haven't Muslim parties won election in a Muslim majority country? Or why don't novice voters choose Muslim political party? It's a big question for us. In fact, Indonesia is one of the largest Islamic countries in the world. The campaign strategy that has been used by Muslim parties doesn't seem to have been able to target the sociological, psychological, and also rational sides of young voters, both in rural and urban areas, or that approach is not enough in analyzing the character of young voters. That's the question. So we can the potential, yeah, Muslim party opportunities. One of the party in this area election, in this dapil, PKS party as one of the Muslim, yeah. Besides PKS, we know PKB, P3, and PAN, yeah, as a Muslim party cluster, yeah. And here PKS party as one of the Muslim in Dapil 2 occupies the top 5 as an elected party in both Cianjur and Bogor city. Yeah, this shows that Indonesian Muslim parties have a chance, yeah, to win election. Having a chance is not enough to win. Yeah, have a chance is not enough to win an election. It is necessary to analyze in the preparation of the strategies in the future, in next, optimism about the chance of Muslim party began to be seen on the surface in the result of 2015 election and continue until 2019 election. And next, for the importance of the socio-political factors, yeah. Samyonov state that social activity of the young people is an important foundation for society's dynamic and innovative development. Economic and socio-political activity in our research of young people is an important achievement in a democratic society and acts as the engine of a serious social process, change in political, economic, social, and other system. From the research, from this research, socio-economic approach juxtapose the indicators of the sociological approach with the economic status of noise voters. And besides socio-economic approach, also political exposure. Political exposure to youth in the village, based on this research, is mostly obtained by novice voters from the information of parents or people who are considered more mature in voting. So the conclusion, sociological factor for novice voters are very influential in the 2019 general election, especially in village. In the psychological approach, it is closely related to the sociological, where the consideration of noise voter in making a choice lies in the relationship of ethnicity, religion. So in practice, sociological factors are closely related to the political grid. The rational approach, the rational choices approach, is one of the approaches that is the key to the victory of most pairs of candidates in the contestant of election. The vision and mission, as well as the figure of the candidate, dominates political preferences for the people, including for the novice voters. Factors, gained, losses for voters still exist in 2019 general election. And the last, the practice of political socialization in the family unwittingly occurs and affect novice voters. Indications of intimidation or coercion of political choices are occurring, albeit in a subtle way. This is a socio-political point that Muslim political parties must corroborate in order to win election. The practice of political socialization in the family unwittingly occurs and affect novice voters. Indication of intimidation or coercion of political choices occur, albeit in subtle ways. Thank you very much. And please, Prof.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Ari, for your presentation. It's very interesting to discuss the novice voters, the young, especially for 2024. I think your research may give insight to political parties, how to win the heart of millennials. But unfortunately, that rural millennial love money, so that you have to have more money to win the election in rural areas. But okay, we have another 22 minutes for discussion. Please raise your hand if you want to ask, or write your question within chat room, so I will read it. There are some questions in the chat room. Question for Pak Hikmawan. Please correct me if I'm wrong. At the beginning, you mentioned that one of the underground groups that became the object of your research was hip hop. Can you explain that? Groups and their ideologies. Second one, are there any reference groups outside Indonesia or movements that serve as guidelines for underground groups in Bandung, Jakarta, Surabaya, and others? And third, what is the model of movement or regeneration pattern carried out by underground groups in distributing their ideology? So that's for Pak Hikmawan. Are there any other questions for others? If not, then I will ask a question for the second presenters. Can you elaborate more how this leftist Nahdiyin on their Islamic theology? Do they also protest, and do also they react to Bahsul Masail in terms of religious belief? Because one of the fundamentalist belief in leftist is they want to reduce the Islamic ideology in the people. So whether this young left Nahdiyin also protest to their ulama leaders. And for Ryllian, Chandra, Eka, how do you apply your finding to see the current political situation in Palembang? Does it match with your findings that happened in 1950s? And how do you apply that what happened in 1950s to the current situation? And the last one for the voting behaviors. So, do you need money to win the millennials? So again, please, Pak Hikmawan, respond.
Okay, thank you, Mas Jamhari, and thank you for the question, Mas Didit Haryadi. So, basically, the underground groups. There are so many underground groups that can be that I use for examples to explain my argument. Is that in the Islamic underground movement, there's this one prominent rapper, and he's a Muslim convert. His name is Tufail Al-Ghifari, yeah. And it is often said that he's actually a big fan of a Bandung-based leftist hip-hop band called Homicide. So Tufail Al-Ghifari was used to be part of the underground, Bandung underground scene, and he was inspired by Homicide. And then he used to be sympathizing with the leftist cause, yeah. But then he became disillusioned, and to be honest, he disappointed with how the leftist movements turned out, especially after Reformasi. And then he started a new band before he became a solo rapper. He started a band called The Roots of Madinah, yeah. And then he started his own, solo music career. He's pretty much expressing his transnational Islamist ideas through his music. And then one of them that was popular in the 2006-2008, I think, was Tufail Al-Ghifari's song called Puritan, Homicide is Dead. And that is his response to Homicide's song Puritan, when Homicide criticized FPI, or Front Pembela Islam, for being or acting like a fascist, basically. Yeah. And at the time when Tufail Al-Ghifari criticized Homicide because he supported FPI, and then basically the music is from Homicide, but he changed the whole lyrics, becomes more supportive of FPI, and in this rap term it's called diss. So he dissed Homicide by attacking them, basically, and you can find the song on YouTube, actually. So Puritan, Homicide is Dead. And apart from Tufail Al-Ghifari, there is also another rapper associated with the One Finger Underground movement, and his name is Salame Hamzah. Yeah. And then in a few years ago, there was also I don't know if we consider them as a hip hop band, but basically you can find a hip hop element in their group. It's called it's associated with the Hijrah movement, but it was not too popular. I think it becomes popular in 2016, and after that the band could not be heard anymore. Young Ikhwan. Some of the members associated with the Hijrah movement in Bandung called Shift, or Gerakan Pemuda Hijrah. So that's the first question. And then answer to the second question: are there any reference group outside Indonesia or movement that serve as guideline? Of course, there are so many of them. From the political bands and musicians from America, from UK, and then also from the local music as well. They're really influential. It can take a very long time to explain this, and basically if you want to discuss further about this question, we can have another chat outside this forum. And what is the movement regeneration or kaderisasi? This is something that I already explained in my thesis, and you can access my thesis actually on the Murdoch University Library repository. And I explained that the recruitment done by this Islamic underground movement, especially the ones associated with HTI, one of them is very much similar to what HTI has been doing in recruiting young people, especially university students. They use LIKO, yeah, and then they usually infiltrating lembaga dakwah campus in campuses. So you will find these members of the dakwah or the LDK members that they wear punks and metals outfit, so they're really different to other, you know, dakwah cadres. So they listen to punk, metal music, but you know they campaigning Khalifahism. Yeah? They're promoting transnational Islamist ideologies, and they're recruiting new generations by through that LIKO and the dakwah on campuses. And then also another one is through music. That was done by all Islamic underground movement collectives. So like Tufal Al-Ghifari, he wrote music that has Islamist lyrics. And then also the 40s accidents from Surabaya, they're also promoting Islamic lifestyle and all that. And basically also fanzines, amateurs or DIY publications. And some of them actually wrote books as well. Like Aditya Abdurrahman, the co-founder of Underground Tauhid and also the founder of Pang Muslim Surabaya. He believed in the the spread of Islamic ideas through those fanzines, and then that's why he's been active in writing books and also fanzines. And then when people read his works, and then they will contacted him and join his movement, basically. So different collectives or groups have different approaches to recruit them, basically like that.
Thank you, Hikmawan. And please, Pak Hadza.
Okay, thank you, Pak Jamhari, for the questions. So we've conducted an interview actually with Kusroy Murtado, who is also one of the founders of the Progressive Nahdliyin Front, the FNKSDA. So he said in his interview with my research partners that the FNKSDA doesn't have any kind of direct link with Nahdlatul Ulama. It's just the sympathizers of Nahdlatul Ulama movement who were also the graduates of pesantren and also having interest in discussing the correlation between Islam and leftist ideology. So if those people are interested in those kind of things, they are welcome to join the movement, the Front Nahdliyin. As far as we've known, from what we've get from the interview and also from our findings through the literature that we've read, I think there's no kinds of opposition from FNKSDA towards the existing Nahdliyin structure. I mean the formal structure, so to say, because their movement is solely focusing on how to build a grassroots consciousness. So what they are doing is this, Pak Jamhari and also fellow colleagues. They are trying to build common platforms together with the PCNU or the branches of Nahdlatul Ulama in cities and also kabupaten across Indonesia to discuss many issues related to environmental fiqh. For example, Gus Fayat was coming to a training in PCNU or the Nahdlatul Ulama branch in Sumeneb to discuss about the importance of advocating for farmers, using the Islamic principle. And that's how the Basul Masail, which is also part of the deliberative interpretation tradition in Nahdlatul Ulama, is also going on in between the FNKSDA and also PCNU. So they are having a good relation instead with the formal structure because they're also part of it. Yeah, some of them are part of it. But what interests us during the process of research is that Gus Roy, as the founder of this movement, is also interacting with many other movements, particularly with interfaith groups and also with a political party that he's involving in as a leader also. So he's been involving in the Partai Hijau Indonesia, and I think it's very interesting to see his achievement in next years. I don't know whether Partai Hijau Indonesia would get what is it, an okay from electoral commission to participate in next election. Pak Maliki, I think that we didn't mention about Islamic capitalism at all in this paper because we entirely focuses our discussion instead on the issue of Islamic leftism. So we didn't have anything to say about Islamic capitalism because we didn't mention it at all. But we mentioned about something that is called as neoliberal Islamism, and this is a term to help us capture a phenomenon of neoliberalization that is happening inside of an Islamist regime of AK Party in Turkey. So one of the Islamic leftist thinkers in Turkey, Ercan Yildirim, has written a book that is called as Neoliberal Islamcılık, and this book, Neoliberal Islamcılık, has captured, has argued that AK Party has always been a staunch supporter of the neoliberal project due to their close allegiance to NATO and also European Union, and they're looking at AK Party Islamism style as something that resembles careerism. So they are trying to sacrifice their traditional Islamic value to the Islamic value that is more acceptable to the market needs. Yeah. So they might use hijab, but at the same time that may be welcoming a neoliberalist idea that would kill the job of the oppressed Muslim in the villages. And so Ercan Yildirim is trying to criticize instead of supporting the party regime by proposing this conception that he called as neoliberal Islamcılık or neoliberal Islamism. That's what I have to say, Pak Jamhari. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Pak Hadza. Next to Pak Ryllian.
I'm so sorry, can you repeat the question?
How can you use your finding in 1950s to understand the current situation, the current political situation?
Okay.
Are they the same?
Okay, thank you. Actually, in my paper, I explain about the compensation for Sumatran. One of the compensation, particularly for Islamic group, is the first is the central government give the space for Islamic group to shelter, such as my workplace is one of the compensation, or the compensation for Islamic group, and then religious high court. But if we want to analyze current political condition in South Sumatra now, of course there's a different pattern now. But we can maybe in the 1950s, I categorize the political formation that consists of four big local power. There are Islamic group, nationalist group, urban nationalist group, traditional aristocrat, and a military. But then I saw that the legacy of the turbulence, the political turbulence in 1950s, that I saw that the fact that the descendant of local aristocrat, they keep still in touch with power in recent condition, because maybe because of the social capital, and they can accumulate their capital to become the political influence. And also I saw the prominent politician in South Sumatra was the descendant child or grandchild of the of the bureaucrat or military who get the benefit from the turbulence in 1950s. That maybe that's my explanation, sir.
Okay, you're welcome. And Pak Ari or Humaira, you want to answer my question?
Please kindly to repeat the question, sir.
Yes, do Islamic political parties need money to win the heart of millennial?
Okay, that's a challenging question actually, but from our, if we can say from our research that money, yes, did buy their voice from the late 2019 election. But from now on, what we want to do in the future, that's why we want to do this research, is that we want to offer them that maybe we don't need money to do the politics on 2024, but we can consider the social political things that they need to more knowing about that. And that's a tricky question. Do you have any answer about that, Ari?
Okay. So we have time?
Sure.
Okay, hard enough, yeah, to answer the question because we know in Indonesia we need not only political cause, yeah, but also money politic, yeah, it's different. But we believe and we always try to explain to candidates, yeah, that actually we can win, yeah, with the only political cause, but we have to effective how to distribute, how to use this cost, yeah. I mean for the activity of campaign, yeah, because we have research and I think all of pollsters in Indonesia know that only the effective of money politics is only about 10% actually. We can break down it to the age, yeah. I think sorry, I never seen, yeah, the breakdown for the age, yeah, but my feeling for the young voters is not interest for them, yeah, because for the money politics, yeah, there are three response from the voters, yeah. They take the money and they choose the candidate, and then they take the money and they choose according to their self, yeah. And the third, they reject the money. So from the 10%, yeah, the money politics distribute to three behavior. So it's not effective actually if you want to win the election with the money politics. I think that.
All right, thank you. I open another question. Oh, this is another question from Pak Musa to Hikmawan. Relating to your method of ethnography, can you explain more?
Oh, Mas Musa, how are you? It's been a while. Okay, explain more about ethnography. In the term, are you going to voice that worldview as young movement, or are you trying to control from the reality of this young movement by the discovery? Oh, okay. So basically, the idea of, okay, let me share the screen then. Second. Okay. Okay, let me jump to the methodology. That is this, I think. Okay. This one, just enough, just one simple sentence here. So I choose ethnographic research method because this is what I believe is really needed within the studies of Islamic politics, as it has been emphasized yesterday by Professor Greg Fili. And it is also another reason, the second reason is also because this is what it has been emphasized by subcultural theorists. Instead of framing the participants by ourselves as a researcher, and then there's a likeliness that there will be like a misrepresentation of what actually the participants believe and say and do. So it is better to use the ethnographic research method. And then the third one is also because this is what actually can capture and record the voices of the real experiences of the participants in their everyday life. And then instead of using leftist and right wing, it is actually used by the participants themselves. Yeah, liberal, progressive is also used by them. Yeah, and I try to, as you will read it in my thesis, you will find it that actually I try to put all, or not all, but put most of the participants' voices there. Yeah, those who used to believe in the leftist ideas, and those who why they disappointed with the leftist ideas, and then they found Islam as giving more solutions to the current problems. Yeah, like for instance, why most of them become disbelieve in democracy, because democracy is not being taught in Islam. That Islam is the solution for the society and the state's problems. Yeah, and actually that's why I use the ethnographic method. And there was lots of them, excerpts of my interviews, conversations with them, but also I always give my critical view of what they said. So I usually, if you read my thesis, you will find the excerpts of the interviews, conversations, or excerpts of the articles I've read from the zines that was published in the 1990s and also in 2000s by both leftists and also by the Islamist underground youth or authors. And you will find that there will be like an analysis to the excerpt of the interviews, conversations, and the articles. So yeah, it doesn't mean that when I want to, expose the voices of the participants, it doesn't mean that I just accept what they say. And to some extent, when you actually did interviews and conversations with different participants, you will find some inconsistencies of their claims, or something that probably they could not tell to me during interview or conversations. But actually, you will find the answers in their rituals, for instance. Like when I did when I joined the pengajian or Majelis Taklim at the Masjid Al-Latif, for instance, in Bandung, this is with the shift of Gerakan Pemuda Hijrah. And, none of them actually said to me explicitly that they are, they're intolerant, for instance. Yeah? And this is the term that we often use to moderate their beliefs, yeah, against Ahmadiyya, against Shia, and all that. Yeah? So none of the participants really explicitly saying that. Yeah? But when I joined the pengajian, you will find that actually, they're really against Ahmadiyya, against LGBT, against Shia. And then the language they used by the preachers is actually really explicit. Yeah? And I've recorded it in my field notes. Yeah, but unfortunately, I think I could not insert it much in my thesis because the limits of the words and all that. So yeah, that's about the methodology question from Musa. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you, Indra.
Okay, no worries.
Thank you, Mas Hikmawan. I think we are already at 14:34, so we are run out of time. So once again, thank you for interesting and an excellent presentation for papers. I think Hikmawan, Hadza bin Fadhli Robby, Pak Ari, and also Pak Ryllian Chandra. I think you give us a new perspective on some interesting issues. Of course, there are some good points that we learned today, and there are some more questions. And And I'm sure there are more questions if we provide some more times to ask questions. But once again, because of the time, so we have to close our session. But before that, for administrations, also for our memory, please show your face because we are gonna have a group picture. So that your beautiful and handsome picture will be in our website. Please turn on your camera. Administration, could you please take the picture of us?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes, okay, 1, 2, 3. Once again, 1, 2, 3. Okay, bro.
Thank you very much. So once again, thank you,
so
Pak Hikmawan, Pak Hari, Pak Ibu Humaira, and Hadza min Fadhli Robby and friends, and also Pak Ryllian Chandra. Thank you for presentation, and on behalf of moderators and also the Indonesian International Islamic University, we would like to thank you very much for your participation in our conference. And the best papers that you present will be published in our journal. Thank you very much and see you next time. So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yes, sir.